Hello, and welcome to Making the Most Out of Every Music Therapy Material, Session Strategy Sheets, one of the course modules offered under the course Composition and Creativity, coming to you from musictherapyworks.com. My name is Mary Jane Landaker, and I'm pleased to present this course module as an idea that has really helped me out over the years as far as my sessions are concerned. Because one of the things that has happened to me in countless different sessions is that I get to the end of all of the things I have down on my plan, everything I've prepared, and I look up at the clock and I still have 15 minutes left of my session time. And one of the things that I have found is that by developing these session strategy sheets, I'm able then to know exactly where I need to go and to progress into the next therapeutic music experience in a way that still supports all of my client goals and isn't just time filling. And so today we're going to talk about how to do that and how to use these session strategy sheets to help you have many different options for working with your clients. Our learner objectives today include not only our general learner objective for this course of completing demonstration elements based on concepts of composition and creativity, but also, in addition, you're going to complete a strategy sheet for at least 2 different therapy materials, which indicates your awareness of common goal areas addressed by the use of each material. And this covers certification, board certification domains 1, Section 1D10, 1D12, 2A2, and 4B3. You're going to need some materials. Fortunately, not too many, but you are going to need some materials. You need to have a computer with internet access, so that way you can access the session strategy sheet, which will be the demonstration element for your course here. You need printer and paper. You'll need a pen and a pencil, I'm sure, and if inspiration strikes, which you never know when it will, staff paper or music writing software nearby would be helpful, and an accompanying instrument as well. And this just gives you an opportunity to have things prepared if you need it. So the heart of this course module is discussing session strategy versus session planning. And in my brain, those two terms, strategy, planning, are not the same. For me, based on the experiences I had as an undergraduate during my pre-internship program, was that session planning was an expectation of how a session was going to progress and that you were expected to follow that progression, versus a strategy where you have an idea of what your end goal is, but you have lots and lots of different ways to get to that end goal. So just so you know, that's how I think of the two. And that's why I prefer strategy versus planning for my own personal practice. Session planning offers a very clear pathway for client and therapist. Client and therapist engage in therapeutic music experience A with the following desired outcomes, and then they move to session experience B with the following desired outcomes, and then session experience C, etc., etc. It offers that clear pathway and provides an opportunity for everybody going into the session to know exactly where the progression is supposed to be. It ensures that goals are addressed during the session. If you have taken the time to sit down and plan through what you're going to say, what you're going to do, and how you're going to engage your client, then you can make sure that your goals are being addressed during the session. There's not always a lot of room for client preference or choice unless you put that into the session format. So, for example, if I want a client to choose between Jingle Bells or Rhythm Sticks, I have to plan that as part of my session plan, so that way I know what's going on. Sometimes this becomes very scripted, and there can be some negative connotations if a session plan does not proceed as envisioned. So, for example, if I came in and had a Jingle Bell therapeutic music experience where I wanted my client to be using his 2 jingle bells and crossing midline and up and down, sideways and over and back and following patterns and initiating patterns and all those kinds of things, what happens if the client walks in and doesn't want to play the jingle bells, but they'd rather play the rhythm sticks? When I was an undergraduate, I would get knocked down for that, because by not having that written into my session plan, my supervisors felt that I was not following my script, and so therefore it was a problem. Whereas I was sitting there thinking, well, with rhythm sticks, I can get him to do all the things I wanted him to do with Jingle Bells. And he's happy because he got to make a choice about the instrument. And so depending on how people interpret that script and that plan, there could be some negative going on with it. Session strategies also ensure that goals are addressed during the session, because you always start with your client goals. And as we get more into how to use the session strategy sheet, that should become a little bit more apparent about how we make sure that goals are addressed during the session. Provides lots of flexibility for session events, and these can accommodate client preference or choice, but they also it also means that you may not necessarily do the exact thing you have on your session plan during your session strategy implementation, but that you're having more of an opportunity to shape your music therapy around the client who's sitting in front of you. It does not have a script. There is no point A happens and then point B happens and then point C happens. Therapy is not shaped before the session, but has to be developed within the moment. And sometimes that's a challenge for all of us, even practiced music therapists. It's sometimes difficult to respond and react within that moment. It requires lots of pre-planning and just thinking through possibilities prior to the session. But I have found that the more I think in this manner and the more I do these things, the easier it is for me as a professional to pull from all of the different materials and resources I have available to me. So you get a little bit of ukulele music while you download the session strategy sheet. And that session strategy sheet is available to you on this page where you entered this course, and is also listed and referenced on your introduction sheet, so that way you have a little bit more information about where it is. So download the session strategy sheet. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds worth of ukulele music while you do that, and we will move on just a little bit. You never know what's going to happen in the middle of a music therapy session or a course module recording. So you should have a copy of the session strategy sheet with you, and we're going to go over each one of these sections. I'm going to describe them a little bit, and then I'm going to show you how I use it to plan my session strategies. And then you're going to have a chance to do that for yourself for a bit, for the demonstration element. So be prepared. The first section of the session strategy sheet is all the materials that you're going to take with you into the session. Now, for me, I have the luxury of having a music therapy clinic, so I have all materials available to me all the time because they're all stored within my clinic. I don't like interrupting what we're doing therapeutically to go over to a cabinet to get something out, so I still use this plan as part of what I'm doing. For the years that I was an itinerant therapist, this was a very, very important part because I wasn't able to bring everything I owned to every single session. So I could say, all right, today I'm going to have shaker eggs, I'm going to have file folder activities for composition, I'm going to have scarves, and I'm going to have paddle drums. And I can write those things down here, and that helps me to shape my session, a full session, around what I'm going to bring in with me. So start off with the materials that you have available to you. And this includes instruments, it includes visual aids, it includes music, it includes songbooks, it includes iPods, whatever you have available, put that into the first aspect of the strategy sheet. What will you take with you into the session, etc. The second information here is the domain areas. And this is specifically goal areas that you can address with the materials available. So this is where the client aspect comes in. Let's say that you have a client who has a motor goal that includes crossing midline, and you have, at this point, you are taking in, I forgot what I said at the beginning, paddle drums. So how are you going to use the paddle drums to address crossing midline? You're going to want to do some reaching out. You're going to want to do a variety of different things. Secondly, so let's say that you have a client in the same group who is working on completion of one-step directives. They may not necessarily be using those materials within a motor aspect, but maybe for them the goal for using the paddle drums is going to be more academic cognitive, and they're going to need to be following instructions, interpretation of one-step directives. And so you're going to be embedding in that, you're going to be embedding verbal or sung instructions for how you want them to complete the task, the movement. So maybe your song then that you're using with the paddle drums, or what you're doing with the paddle drums, then not only includes crossing midline, which is not bad for everyone, but may not be the therapeutic focus for everyone in the group. But you also have the sung one-step instructions. Everybody play up, 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 up. Everybody play to the side, to the side. Everybody play other side, other side. Everybody play down, 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 down. And then that way you know that everything that you're going to do with the paddle drums is going to have both of those aspects and elements with it. Think about how you can use the materials you have with you to address the goals that are already present in your therapeutic group. And then the last part is your experiences, and you want to brainstorm everything you know underneath this particular aspect. So paddle drums with the motor goals that you have, how can you use, what are the songs that you know, what are the therapeutic music experiences that you have in your repertoire that you can put into the session that will address these motor goals? What do you have that will address the academic, cognitive, social communication, emotional, behavioral, musical, and other? Now, just FYI, these are the domains that I use. These are not domains that everybody has to use, and the reason you get the Word document here is that you can change them to do what you need to do in order to make it work. So if you have other domains that you work on, just shoot me an email and let me know, because I'm always interested in how other people have to use materials. So here is the first example, and you are going to do this process with at least two different materials that you take with you into music therapy sessions for your demonstration element. There is space on the worksheet for 4, so if you find yourself doing more, and I highly suggest that you just go ahead and fill it out for a full strategy, for a full session strategy, then you have the work already finished. What we're going to use today, and what I'm going to talk to you about, is how I would fill out this session strategy sheet, specifically using the picture above, the variety of balls that you see in my ball drawer. I have 3 different kinds of balls in this drawer that you can see. There are couche balls. Those are the multicolored ones that have loops on them, and then the one at the very bottom that's just straight and spiky. There are ones with short spikes. They need to be inflated to work, otherwise they're just like ball bodies. They need to be inflated to work, and they bounce really, really well, and they end up being about this big. Couche balls are generally about this big, blow-up balls about that big. And then the last is porcupine balls, and that's the red one, the very lightest green one, and the purple one that you can see in the box. And those have more, they're about the same size as the couche ball. They have more heft to them. They are not as squishy. They're a little bit more rigid. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this idea of having these balls in my session as my material. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to write in my materials available, I'm going to write down balls. And I might delineate a little bit further: couche balls, blow-up balls, porcupine balls. Might not. Maybe I could just do things with the balls that I have. And then I'm going to start to brainstorm what I can do with these props. And this is going to be something that isn't necessarily going to make it onto my strategy sheet, but it's going to be really important a little bit. The next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to take this strategy sheet and I'm going to write down the goals that each one of my clients has, because that is what I need to do to shape this into a strategy. So for example, I may have a client who needs to work on grasp and release motor function, and I may have another client who is working on crossing midline. And then I may have a bunch of clients who don't have any motor goals, but I have those two motor goals that I need to be thinking about as I'm designing therapeutic experiences to use this material. So I've got my crossing midline, I've got my grasp and release. So those are two motor skills I need to work on in everything I do with the balls. I may have a group that is working on completion of one-step directives, which is an academic cognitive skill. And so I'm going to need to make sure that not only we're doing grasp and release, we're also doing crossing midline, but we're also having to complete one-step directives. And this is starting to shape how I'm going to use these materials within my session. I may have somebody who has an emotional behavioral goal. Maybe they are working on frustration tolerance. And so I'm going to want to make sure that I have opportunities in our therapeutic music experiences where they have to work on that skill. So they don't always get a ball. Sometimes they're going to have to wait patiently to see what's going on. I may have kids who have musical goals that are part of this. You know, maybe we're trying to coordinate our movements to a specific beat. Might have other goals as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to put all of those goals underneath the materials here. Brainstorming is going to be what is going to happen now after I have delineated my goals. So I'm going to look at each one of the goals that I have written here in my domain areas, and I'm going to think specifically what these props can do to help me have my clients reach their goals. So with the motor goals, grasp and release, pretty easy. They got to hold onto a ball, they got to let it go. Crossing midline, also pretty easy. Maybe we could do something where we have one ball and we pass it to our neighbor, or maybe everybody has a ball and we pass it to our neighbor. Who knows? Academically and cognitively, maybe we can embed one-step directives into our song that we're going to use to shape and to model our entire experience. Socially and communicatively, maybe with working on frustration tolerance, maybe we only have two balls going around the circle. Then everybody's getting an opportunity to work on grasping and releasing, crossing midline, completing one-step directives, but they also have to wait for a turn, which can be frustration induced. Oh, that was emotional behavioral, wasn't it? Sorry, you get the idea. And then I'm going to sit down and I'm going to design the therapeutic music domains that I can use to reach these domain goals. Now, the ideal situation would be to have about 7 or 8 therapeutic music experiences under each one of these domains that you could use to address those specific domains and those specific goals. It doesn't always happen that way, and I would suggest that if you can't think of something of a therapeutic music experience that you could use for any of these materials, then why are you taking the materials into the session to begin with? So for example, we're going to play Hot Potato, and Hot Potato is going to work on our grasp and release. It's going to work on our crossing midline, because we're only going to pass with our left hands today. It's going to work on following one-step directives, because I'm going to write a song that says, you know, when the potato comes to you, or when the ball comes to you, take it and pass it, use only your left hand, and wait for the music to stop. Emotional behavioral, we're going to work, or social communication, going to work on expressing ourselves, so when we get to the end of our game, they're going to answer a question, or they're going to ask a question. Emotional behavioral, not everybody's going to get a turn to be the special person. Musically, they're going to be listening to the music and responding to it. And so I can then put this down as something that is going to address every single one of my goals. We can also then use that for, I'm going to pass this deck from me to you. We're going to pass the ball and do just what I do. We can also do question and answer ball, where we're tossing it across the circle and paying attention. You know, there are a variety of things that we can do with this that will help our clients reach their goals and objectives. All right, so now it's your turn. It's your turn to complete the strategy sheet for at least 2 different session materials. And I'm going to challenge you to pick things that you don't use very often or that you don't really know what to do very often, but come up with as many different therapeutic music experiences as you possibly can in order to do this. Now, this may take you some time, and quite frankly, we're almost finished with the slides itself in this course module, specifically because I know that it sometimes takes a little while to get used to a brand new way of thinking through things. What you want to have on your session strategy at the end is enough things on this session strategy sheet so that way if your client walks in and they just had a particularly invasive medical procedure and they just don't feel like playing a game with passing things or throwing things across the room, you want to have some other ideas, some other music therapy experiences that you have thought through that will address their goals, but that will be able to be shaped around them. So maybe instead of doing the game where we are passing back and forth, maybe then we are focusing on crossing midline by providing sensory stimulation to our arms. Maybe we're working on grasp and release by dropping things onto our feet just to provide some sensory stimulation. You want to have enough ideas that you can actually figure out what you're going to do in a session when a client walks in and you have to figure out how you're going to get that client engaged. Pause a little bit here to complete the strategy sheet. At least 2 different session materials to complete your demonstration element, and take your time. This time I'm going to play in the key of C. Things to consider as you are thinking about session strategy sheets, as you are wondering if this is something that will work for you. First of all, strategies are options. They are things that you can do so that way, for example, if a client comes in and they are not at all in the mood that you thought they were going to be in, you then have the option and the opportunity to shape that session again, but not lose the opportunity to work on client treatment goals. Nothing is set in stone. And these ideas are meant to change and adapt when used as well. So you may end up having, one of the things that I have is I do lots of things with 4x6 index cards to help me organize things. And so I have some index cards which say things like koosh balls, and then lists all of the therapeutic experiences that I know of that I could do with koosh balls. Lists common goal areas and things I can do with them as well, just as a prompt to think about things. And I'm constantly adding to that. And as I find I use my session strategy sheets, when the clients come in, they make suggestions that I put onto my session strategy sheet because they're good ideas. So nothing is set in stone. Ideas are meant to change. They're meant to be adapted. This is a dynamic format. It never ends. There will always be new ideas, new ways you can use a ukulele, new ways you can use a boom whacker, new ways you can use a box of balls. And again, clients offer the most innovative ideas, and so think about that and use it. To complete this course module, you need to send your completed strategy sheet to me at contactus@musictherapyworks.com. And if you have questions, if you're not sure about something, if you want to know more, feel free to contact us, because there is nothing that says that you have to do this on your own. Thank you so much for choosing Music Therapy Works for your continuing music therapy education needs, and I hope that you get an opportunity to come back and visit us soon. Thanks.